Well, hey, so this is Wine Slut, the podcast, and you are Jessica Gasca, owner, winemaker, Story of Soil. I guess do you just want? I mean, everybody knows you, right?
I mean,
You're famous. You're known all over the world. Let's have a competition. I don't know that I've ever asked you some of these things before. I feel like as long as we've known each other, at least the last 5 years, because that's when maybe we only met 5 years ago when I opened the tasting room in Los Olivos. Oh no, we would have met before that when you were at Dragonette, but we didn't know each other that well. I just want to get like
down to your house with Brandon Sparks Gillis. You did a tasting. You and all your nerdy wine geek friends, you guys were all doing like this tasting, and I was like, I'm surrounded by these really cool, like really knowledgeable wine people. And
it's all a facade. It's smoke and mirrors, Jessica. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, it was. I think we were all studying for the MW at that point. All those people that were there.
You were already at MW.
Oh, and some of them were my mentees, and maybe my mentor was there. I'm now remembering. Yes, I'm now remembering this thing. I think I made like a soup of some sort because I always make. I was like vegan and gluten free because everybody had all these like fucking dietary restrictions, which is fine. But you got, just give me like the quick lowdown on like your, like, you know, what was your original vision for what you were going to do in the wine business?
There was no vision.
Yeah, me too.
I did not get in this to be a business owner. I did not get in this thinking I'm an entrepreneur. This is what I'm going to do. I got into it because I wanted to learn how to make wine. And so kind of stumbled into.
But like, why did you want to learn how to make wine? Like, why was that important? Why were you called to that?
I got my degree in something completely different. I put myself through college, waiting tables, bartending, got into restaurant management. I ended up moving to New York. This is Cliff Notes, very Cliff Notes. Moved to New York City because I thought New Yorkers were the coolest people on the planet.
And then you learned that they weren't? I'm joking.
Well, no, I really think
I'm totally kidding.
New Yorkers are so cool, but I just couldn't hang. I'm a born and raised Southern California. Like, I genuinely don't like cold or hot weather. Like, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So, went to New York. I was bartending at a little French restaurant on the Upper West Side. I didn't drink wine. I didn't even know how to say Cabernet. I didn't know what a Chardonnay was. I was in my very beginning of my 20s, and a somm there would sit down with us every Tuesday and give us wine classes. And in that, because I had to know what I was pouring, in that I really fell in love with a beverage that I didn't know anything about. But it wasn't about what I was drinking. It was really about the philosophy that wine actually encompasses art, science, history, geology, geography, the past, the present, the future. All of these things that I saw through those lenses of that little half an hour tasting every Tuesday where he would talk about these different wines from around the world. And that's where I kind of started getting hooked into it. So moved back from New York, finished my bachelor's degree, was still managing restaurants, was miserable, went back to get my master's, or studying to get my master's, the GRE, and I was still miserable. And I really did love learning about wine. And I would go tasting with people in my world and realize very quickly on that not everybody wants to learn about tannin. Not everybody wants to learn about mouthfeel or like mid-palate. Most people just want to get shit-faced drunk when they go wine tasting, and that's not why I would go wine tasting. So I wanted to learn about it. In 2009, put my master's degree on program. I just thought, you know what, I'm going to go work a harvest because that's how much I wanted to learn more about wine, and did, and absolutely fell in love. I was still, so my uncle's in wine, Gary Burke. I did not grow up in wine. People are always like, oh, you're so lucky. You grew up in wine. I did not. My dad drank Coors Light, and he had Franzia in a box in the fridge. My dad's little sister married my uncle, who's now my uncle Gary Burke. So I didn't grow up in wine, but did have the opportunity, called him and said, hey, I'd love to learn about wine. He said, okay, come up. I can't pay you, but I'll teach you. And I moved up in 2009 and was a restaurant manager at Marisol at the Cliffs in Shell Beach. And every second of the 2009 harvest that I could be harvesting, I harvested and worked in the cellar and did everything I could do to learn. And that's where I knew it. I just knew it didn't matter if I wasn't going to make a single dime in my life. I knew that I was happy learning about wine and that I was happy in the vineyards. I was happy in the cellar. And I never felt that amount of joy learning about something, right? We all go to school to your parents like, go to school, learn something. And it's all a drudge until you find something that isn't a drudge. It's a piece of what fulfills your soul. And that's really what wine became for me. That learning journey was finally something in my life that I was like, oh, learning can be fun, learning can be joyous. And that's why I jumped in.
How old were you when you I feel like there's this part in our 20s because you were funny. You were like, I was miserable doing this and I was miserable doing that because I spent my whole 20s being miserable essentially. And so I'm just wondering like when were you like not miserable? Like the age that you kind of found this.
I was late. It was late in life. I had moved to New York in 2003 and came back, finished my degree, working in restaurants, and then in 2008 and then into 9 was when I was like, okay, I'll go back and study for my GRE. So I worked the first harvest up here in Santa Barbara County in 2009. I was 29. I was born 29. In 1980. So I was late. I didn't find my path in life until I'd say what people would consider later in life.
And then so you went to work for Dragonette at some time because that's when I met you.
Yep.
Were you like general manager there? Like what was your role? I know you were working in the cellar a little. Were you in the tasting room predominantly?
So I actually, interestingly enough, before Dragonette, I worked for Matthias at Sanguis for about 3.5 years, which is where like, it really cut my teeth learning how to break down a barrel, top barrels, rack barrels, prep the bottling machine, run a team, all the things that kind of gave me a foundation for winemaking. And I was with Matthias for about 3.5 years, left there, did a quick stint as harvest enologist at Fess Parker Winery. And then during that time, I had met Steve Dragon.
Did you study enology? Sorry to interrupt you. Did you study enology at any time? How did you just step into Fess Parker and be like, I'm going to be an enologist here? Like,
being an enologist and being a harvest enologist is very different.
Okay.
So being a harvest enologist was running very simple lab work that
at the winery. So like sugars, pH.
That I was trained on, that I could run pHs, TAs, using the equipment that they had. So it was I honestly I hated that job. I was in an office 8 to 10 hours a day, depending on any time of the harvest. And that's all I did was like, boop, 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 boop. Like that was it. I would never, and I like, God bless enologists and the lab people in our lives that help make our lives even better. That one harvest was enough. So three months of sitting in a little lab doing those things. So I think I learned a lot about that little window or that range, I should say, of where should pHs be? Where should TAs be? Where should this be? Where should that be? Mm-hmm. And obviously it's a range, but it was fun to learn that under Blair Fox, who I think is an incredibly smart, very, very smart winemaker.
He is such a great winemaker. His tasting room is just behind both mine and yours. And he came over yesterday. I just love talking to him. He's just so smart.
He's very smart.
Really, really good winemaker.
Yeah, one of the smartest people I think I've come across. Just listening to him talk that year, I was like, it was a different language he was speaking.
He still talks a different language to me. I still don't know the words he says.
Yeah. So then I went to work for Dragonette. And Dragonette, I can't say enough good things about that company. Those 3 guys that I feel like taught me a lot. So back to your question, was I in the cellar? I was not in the cellar with them. I spent every day in the cellar with them, but that's because I was running their sales program. So I did a lot of sales for them the 5+ years I worked for them. And I think one of the reasons why it was a great fit is they were so generous and kind and allowing me to start my own, continue with my own wine program, continue with my winemaking, which was done offsite up at CCWS. And so they were very gracious. And so I spent a lot of time with them in the cellar while they were working, while I was doing sales. So I actually do think that a lot of my program here, I would attribute not while working under their winemaking tutelage as a cellar worker, but absorbing what they were teaching while we were there in the cellar tasting and selling wines. So learning the importance of what vineyard sites, like fruit quantities and like yields. And I mean, there's so many things that I learned from them just listening to them talk about the importance of their program, that it really taught me way more knowledge than I ever even thought I would learn, just working for somebody as a sales, as one of their sales leads. So.
Yeah. Did you make your first wine back in the corner there? Did you start making wine at Dragonette?
No, I started making wines at CCWS up in Santa Maria.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah.
for those that don't know CCWS, it's a Santa Barbara iconic facility, Central Coast Wine Services, where the likes of Jim Clendenin, Bob Lindquist, Joe Davis from Arcadian.
Hitching Post made their wines there too, right? Hitching Post
yeah.
too?
Yeah. Justin Willett, Tyler Winery, Refugio Ranch. Gosh, who else is there? Seth Kunin, Joshua Clapper from Tomber Wines. I mean, just so many people that came into this facility, and everybody was making wines together. And that's actually where I spent my first harvest with my uncle, was there. And so 2013, I was working for Matthias at Sanguis. I was not with Dragonette. Sorry, 2012 was my first vintage. And still made my wines up at CCWS. All of my red wines were made up at CCWS from year one. My first year of Sauvignon Blanc in 2015, Dragonette helped me make in their facility. In my opinion, and I think a lot of people would share this opinion, I think Dragonette cellars are some of the best Sauvignon Blanc producers in, for sure, the United States, if not up there with some of the best producers in the world. I just think
totally. I know somebody just came into the tasting room last week and was like, I want to taste the best Sauvignon Blanc that you have. And I was like, it's not here. So head on over to Dragonette.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sent them over there.
They did help me make my first Sauvignon Blanc. And I will actually say that, like, the Sauvignon Blanc that I make here is a lot inspired by their brilliance, honestly. So
yeah. So one of the things I wanted this podcast to be, and you and I talk about this, I feel like we don't get on the phone that often, but when we do, we start talking about something, and then inevitably it goes into all the shitstorm that our business lives are, like what are we doing in what area? So you started to build this brand, like, when you said, so you maybe didn't have a vision for it originally, but did you, knowing how successful Dragonette had been in the tasting room? Because, for instance, we wouldn't have a tasting room if it weren't for Brandon Sparks-Gillis telling us you have to open a tasting room or you just can't make that margin, right? You can't make money doing what you guys, meaning us, were doing at the time, which was just selling all wholesale. So Brandon has been really instrumental in helping us build our business just by giving us ideas that way. So when you saw like their business, they were in Los Olivos, I feel like relatively early for a tasting room, and which used to be like art galleries and things like that. Did you kind of, as sort of they're sort of running sales, did you see that tasting room was so important to margin? And then, because you were just DTC when you first started, right? You were tasting room only.
Did I see that their tasting room was so important? So
yeah, to their business, I guess. Like, did that help you with your original vision of saying, I'm not going to focus on wholesale where the margins are so low. I'm actually going to try
for myself?
For yourself.
No way.
Yeah.
I didn't. I mean, even when I worked for Dragonette, I had no intention of owning a business or like opening a tasting room or having a full blown
But
winery.
what was your plan? Like, so you made this wine. You were already at CCWS. Like, what was the plan once you got to CCWS?
I had zero plan. Like
So,
there was no plan. I probably would have worked at Dragonette for the rest of my life, making a little bit of wine on the side and selling it on the side. I didn't really no, I didn't think of anything. And to the point about the tasting room, like I wasn't, when I first started working for them, I didn't have all the understandings of wholesale, DTC, what that looked like within the construct of owning a business. What I was doing for them really was starting their private winery tasting program. So I focused so much of my time of building this program that was another avenue of revenue for them while they did their wholesale, while they had their tasting room. And then I came in and said, okay, wait a second, I have this experience and I can build you a whole nother avenue of revenue, and built the private winery tasting program, which I think, I mean, you can talk to the three guys. I'm proud to say that I think we guns blazing, were one of the best programs for 5 years, and the wine industry has changed since then, but it was an incredibly, and they still are obviously, but that program was probably one of the most sought after experiences in Santa Barbara County back in, from 2013 to 2018. We were constantly turning people away because, people couldn't get a reservation in there. It was a good program. So
that's amazing.
That was not, even while I was working for them, and I gave every ounce of what I had to see their program become successful, because I really did believe in what they were doing. I still don't think I didn't think I was going to own a business. That still wasn't on my radar at all. I was just kind of selling wine on the side and making wine on the side, which was very, very, very fulfilling to my heart and my soul. And that's why I kept doing what I was doing, which was tiny. I mean, I was making 4, 5, 6 tons of fruit. I wasn't making what I'm making now, so.
But that's still somewhere, I don't know, 300, 350 cases. And so you still have to move that wine every year, right? Like, it can get backed up really easily. I often hear people, young, maybe assistant winemakers, I just heard this the other day, somebody was saying, I'm going to start my own label. And you and I both know where the wine business is right now. And I shudder for anybody who's trying to start like a young upstart, and I want so much for these young people to be successful, but I'm scared for them, honestly. Like, I guess we all manage to find our way. Like, they will find their audience and their way, but it is a little bit, I don't know, it is a little bit scary to start making wine when you don't have an avenue for sales. So you were making wine at CCWS. Let's say you were making 300, 350 cases a year. If you're not selling 350 cases, if you're only able to sell like 50 direct, then suddenly you start getting backed up on vintages. And to me, like, that just strikes fear in my heart, because I have seen so many wineries go down when they can't sell the wine that they've made, and it's going on for 4 or 5, 6, 10 years, whatever it is. Yeah. I know some really successful people in the wine business who went out of business just because they kept making the wrong quantity of wine to try to meet the market. So when was the turning point where you were like, oh, I'm going to open a tasting room, I'm going to start a business?
2017, I opened my tasting room. It wasn't because I planned on opening a tasting room. In 2016, I had a group of friends in Los Olivos, San Ynez Valley, and one of those friends who's no longer a winemaker, but Michael Zinke. He owned a property
of course.
in Los Olivos, and his tasting room had a tiny little side house, if you will.
That space was amazing. That's
it
an awesome
was,
space.
but he was going to open up a different retail avenue there, and it didn't work with the county of Santa Barbara. God bless the Santa Barbara County. I wish they could understand small business owners, but if it didn't work out for permitting reasons, so he was sitting on this empty little space in his tasting room, and we were friends, and he knew I was making, at that point I was making four wines. Each wine was probably 50 to 100 cases, and he's like, I have this tasting room, I have this space, do you want it for a tasting room? This was probably, I'm not kidding, maybe September, October, I don't know, 2016. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. Like, he's like, I'll give it to you really cheap. Like, you can have it.
Do you remember what the rent was?
I should ask Brady that. Okay, so I want to say it was very inexpensive. I want to say it was probably like $2,200,
Yeah.
$2,000 maybe. Which at the time, like 100% transparency, I never had more than $5,000 in my bank account in any given moment. That was a big, huge hurdle for me. I just got married. Brady and I were so broke. I mean, we got pregnant. Anyway, that doesn't matter. I was like, oh, is this really a good idea? I don't know. But for some reason, I said yes. And we opened the tasting room because I had this opportunity. And it really was a friend saying, like, I have the space. Do you want it? And there were a lot of people that wanted to open tasting rooms. Again, I had no idea how to run a business, no idea how to have I mean, in my restaurant days, obviously we had like P&Ls and things like that we had to fill out. But like really starting a business takes a lot of work. And I was like, let's do it.
Yeah, I think it's better that you don't know,
I
when you're
totally agree.
going into it.
Great.
Yeah.
People ask me now, if I knew then what I know now, I'm a hell no.
Yeah.
No, would I have done this knowing then what I would have had to go through to get to even what we're doing here? Like I would have been scared shitless. All of those things. No, I would have been a no. But I was like, let's do it. And so we did. And I opened the tasting room with 4 wines in bottle. And I would go pull barrel samples every week to be able to pour barrel samples at the tasting room to pre-sell. And we didn't have enough money to even buy labels back then, right? Like we were bottling wines without labels. We'd have to sell some wines. Then we'd go print our labels and we'd hand label and try to sell those wines. So that was kind of the beginning stages of Story of Soil in 2017.
So some of these costs that we're talking about, like even you talking about like just printing labels, like this morning, Peter and I were in the winery trying to do some blends for Wine Slut. And one of the things that we've realized is we actually, just because Wine Slut's only $25, we couldn't use the wine that we thought we were going to use when we were doing costs. So now it looks like I'm only making 25 or 40 cases of this Wine Slut white or whatever it's going to be. But I have to print up, it's like 1,000, basically it ends up being like $1,000 minimum to print up labels. And that doesn't make sense if you're only making like 50 cases, right? So I just want to know, like, can you kind of like break down some of your, the smaller costs are fine, but some of your bigger costs that come with people, like the people might not realize what it is to run a winery. It can go anything from rent to salaries to, I don't know, something unexpected that just comes up, like our forklift broke. That's, we bought a new one. I used one for 20 grand. It's, little like things like that. Like costs if somebody steps up to you in the tasting room and goes, I want to start a winery. Like is there something that pops into your head that goes, oh, they're not going to believe what this costs?
I don't think that anybody can understand what it costs at all. It doesn't, yeah, there's like, right? Like, okay, so this winery, which isn't very big in the grand scheme of wineries or anything like that.
How many square feet about are we looking at?
We probably have a total of about 6,000 between outside. Okay. That's the outside crush pad, if you can see it. Yeah. And then that right there, we still are in a lot of debt for.
How much was what is your press revenue?
That pretty thing.
Yeah, beautiful.
I think all said when we finished everything, it was probably close to 100 grand.
Yeah.
And we have a glycol machine that was probably about 40 grand. We have a destemmer, the elevator we used from Brave and Maiden, which was like, yes, we bought that for, I want to say we bought that for like 7,500 or 10,000 or something. Everything costs fucking money. Like, I
Do you
don't
buy
know.
new barrels at all?
We buy no new barrels.
No new barrels.
So
Okay.
some of the costs that some people, they want this very elegant, traditional wine, and you need new barrels. Like we don't even use new barrels, thank God. So we're buying used barrels from producers that we respect: Dragonette, Grassini, Foxen, Paulata. We buy used barrels from, and we're probably anywhere from like $50 to $100 per barrel. And every year we get new barrels, but I couldn't
You get new used barrels from
use
producers. Yeah.
new barrels. But yeah, so that's not even, I don't even look at that really as like a major cost. Rent, my cooling bill to keep this winery. I mean, this is how I dress year round because we have to have the air
Yeah.
conditioning on year round. So, the cooling bill in the summertime, especially a couple grand a month. There's so many things. Hauling water. We just got notification from the state of California. Thank you, state of California, where we now have to have new permits that could potentially increase our costs by tens of thousands of dollars a year, which that's a hard pill to swallow. Also, it's kind of like, how do we figure this out? How do we what do we cut, or how do we increase, or it's like those things that I have really bad insomnia ever since owning a
Yeah.
business. I'm not kidding. Like
Yeah.
I
Same.
wake up in the middle of the night, can't go back to sleep sometimes for hours. Just thinking about all the things that we're trying to do here. And so, outside of label, like people think, oh, I want a winery. I'm going to get barrels and grapes and corks and bottles and glass. What else is there? I mean, come on. I can't
Yeah.
tell you how much more there is. I mean, every single gasket and clamp and pitcher and cork and bung, and I'm just looking around hoses and
Barrel racks and
barrel racks. And well, I still get you. I mean, you can see they're all
yeah.
used, but even used ones are ridiculously priced. I mean, our steamer, we have to have cleanliness. What else am I looking around now? All of our tanks are everything.
What was like in all this, because I think about profitability all the time. Like we make a little bit of money, but Peter and I, we don't pay ourselves all that much, right? Just especially compared to sort of the cost of living now. Like what was did you have a year, your first year, that you were like, oh, we're profitable, we're going to make some money? Like the first year you could hire an employee. Like what was that for you? Like we were 17 years in until we turned a profit, until we opened the tasting room, essentially.
Well, so I worked for Dragonette the first year that we opened the tasting room. So I had a full-time job, which was great. Brady, my husband, worked the tasting room 5 days a week. We didn't have a winery back then. So we were still at CCWS. We didn't have any equipment. We were paying somebody else to use their equipment.
Yeah, what was the cost on that? I always wanted to know. Do you remember with CCWS, like what you would pay monthly? Did you pay according to how much equipment you were using? So maybe you didn't destem some days, but you did other days. Or was it just a fixed cost?
So it was based upon tonnage for using, because
Okay.
we did our own work. So like Joshua Clapper from Tomber was somebody that I paid during harvest. So it was per ton, depending on whether you wanted like whatever, destemming, or you wanted to use a tank or the press or this or that. I mean, back then, God, I could be so off. That was so long ago, but I want to say it was probably like $500 a ton or something like that. But we didn't have to like,
That's pretty cheap, right? Because that would amount to about, oh my God, my math is horrible, but $10 a case or something for a winemaking fee?
well, that was just to like crush with him, but then we
Just,
also had to
okay.
pay rent.
Yes.
Right?
Okay. Well, so
With-
yeah, that's what I was asking. So the rent, so that was separate. So that was like storage.
Yeah. So CCWS, going back to CCWS, think of it about a giant Costco, and each of us had like our own little square footages of space
Yeah.
to put our own barrels and potentially our own things. And luckily, even back then when I was that small, I was making wines in my uncle's space because I had, 10 barrels only. So I
Yeah.
rented space for my 10
From
barrels.
him. Okay.
Yeah, and depending on what you wanted, right? Like we crush now for other clients. We have clients to help us pay this rent and our air conditioning bill and all the things. So we make wines, and so we do things more on a, per case basis that's all encompassing. So we are not charging square footage in here, plus forklift use, plus this, like all of the things that different packages that you can do. And
Yeah.
so it's like a one, fee per case type thing.
So like if you think about profitability, do you, like, I'm trying to figure this out for our winery. How do I phrase this? We're trying to figure out how much it costs us to make a bottle of wine a lot of times, right? With all the problems we're having in our vineyard, it's just like, how much does a bottle of Joy Fantastic cost to make with everything included, including our measly little salaries? I never know whether we look at the way that when we make wines for clients, like, do we add that in to, the things that help pay us just in terms of what our costs are and what our profit is? Or I don't know if I'm making sense. Do you keep that totally separately, or does it kind of help your whole business? So do you put, because you have two people in the cellar, right? You have Jennifer and Courtney.
Full time, full time is Courtney, and then Jen is part time.
Jen is part-time. Okay. And then you have two people in the tasting room. Mm-hmm. Brandon's full-time. Elise is part-time.
Elise is full time.
Elise is full-time too. You have two. Okay. So, I mean, that's a lot to carry, Jess. We haven't figured out how to keep one full-time employee. Yeah. How do you manage that? Do you manage it by not just like keeping a lot direct sales, but also by bringing clients on? But you have a lot of expenses with the space too.
Yeah. So I think, I kind of separate them.
Okay.
So I look at how much does it cost me to run this winery? And, well, first I'll say we're failing at that. So Brady and I just
you're failing at the cost to run the wine. The Sorry, I'm not laughing. I deeply empathize.
Like we did our taxes this year, and then I kind of sat down and was really looking at like how much do our winery clients bring in, and how much does it actually cost us to run the winery.
Yeah.
And we're actually losing a ton of money, and we're essentially footing the bill for other people to make wines because we're not competitive. We haven't been as competitive in our pricing. We just sent out a notice that said we're going to increase our prices. Okay, great. Which still probably won't fully cover costs, but next year. So we told our clients, hey, this year we have to increase. We don't want to tell everybody like we're increasing costs by X amount, even though landlords do that all the time. But
all the time, yeah. Ours just did it. I think I told you this. They just raised our rent just by they were like 25% this year, and we were like, "You're raising our rent 25." Oh yeah, because we talked. Of course, we were at your winery, being like, "What can we do?"
Yeah,
it's nuts balls.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
So our clients, we're increasing prices, and we're going to do it over the course of 2 years to hopefully make those numbers make sense. But I also look at, okay, how much does it cost me to run this facility versus how much does it cost us to run the tasting room? Mm-hmm. Also, Brady and I are super good at like bringing it all in together for COGS, right? Like cost of goods is so much different because maybe we're not taking into account, Courtney's salary and Elise and Brandon and Jen and our harvest interns that we're paying. And like cost of goods is very simple to look at. And I think that's why people think they want to make wine, because they go, oh, the cost of goods. It's just glass, labels, cork, fruit, winemaking. Okay, great, right? Like that's cost of goods. But really the cost of doing business is exponentially more wild than especially in this business, more wild than anybody would ever consider. And then you throw in taxes on top of it. We're all kind of just dum-dums here. So
Yeah, I mean, no, it's crazy because I put a spreadsheet out to try to figure out what our cost of goods are, what we include in cost of goods, which if you're just going to include the cost of the wine, the corks, the glass, all the things you were saying, like for instance, wine slut rosé, our cost of goods there is probably like $7.50. But if we start adding in trucking, right? How do we get the wine from here to there? If you add in warehousing per case, if you add in that, I need to kind of make some salary on this and Peter needs to make some salary on this. Like, where do you actually, then our cost of goods is up to double that, right? Like $14. And this is before we're adding in rent. And if you're only charging, I keep bringing up wine slut because I'm just looking at these costs right now. But determining cost of goods, I feel like it's really hard because at some point you do have to add in, like you have to pay your mortgage, like you have to live, you have a personal life, you have employees, you have to have health insurance, like all these things to me, I know they're not the cost of goods or the cost of business, but it's still there. So we started separating it in the spreadsheet to like cost of goods for wine. And then we have a whole spreadsheet of like, oh my God, Jess, it was like cost of doing business per case is almost like if you split it by case for Joy Fantastic, it's almost like $297 a case additional for just in addition to the cost of goods for the wine. I mean, how do we even, it's like, so when you start looking at that, oh, it's $35 just to produce a bottle of Pinot Noir or whatever that might be. It's really difficult to think about how you get ahead or ever give yourself a raise.
I mean, Brady doesn't make any money. He does not get a paycheck.
Oh, poor Brady. You can get him some money.
My paycheck is, I think I don't know. I think maybe I get like $30,000 a year, which in reality, when you think about living off of that, it doesn't. A lot of our money that we do have come in goes back into paying our rent and paying other people's abilities to live. I mean. I also look at it and maybe, this is not smart business, but I look at it as a sense of like, it's okay that I don't make a lot of money because I get to do what I love to do versus going to sit behind a job 40 hours a week. And maybe I would have made $150,000 doing something or $200,000 sitting behind a desk, doing something, but I get to make wine for a living. So I kind of feel like maybe that's, and maybe the older I get, the smarter I'll get and go like, what the F am I doing? Why am I even doing this? I could, make $200,000 a year and go travel around the world or something. But I know we're not going to make millions here. I'm not going to retire.
Do you ever think about getting smaller in order to be more profitable? Because this is something I think about a lot when like reducing expenses. So let's say that there were a CCWS still and Peter and I were like, I'm so tired of doing this thing that we're doing, having all this equipment, like let's just move somewhere, make the wine on a really small scale, and we might make the same amount of money. Our grape bills will be reduced. Our barrel costs will be, you know what I'm saying? Whereas we all that? Keep like, what?
Are you asking if I think about that?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think, too, like I tell Brady, we're responsible here for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 different clients we make wines for, 8 different wines we make clients for. And I just, like I said, after we did our taxes, I was like, oh my God, we are losing so much money. Like, what if we just don't do this?
Yeah.
What if we just go back to paying somebody else the crush fees and I don't have to, pay off this press and pay off that and do all this stuff. I do think about that. I think that there's also a joy that I have here knowing that like we work hard to do this, right? Like there are some winemakers out there that don't really make wines, and we're making wines, and we're making some damn good wines. And do I want to wake up and not walk into my own facility?
Yeah,
and
I know.
I don't think so. Not right now.
Yeah.
I still walk in to the facility, and when I'm here by myself, and I just kind of look around, I'm like, fuck yeah, like we built this, you know, and we built this with not even 2 pennies to rub together. We still only have 2 pennies to rub together, so it's not like I said, we're never going to make millions off of it, but it is a beautiful life, and I think I waver back and forth constantly about the stress of. I would say to anybody that wanted to start a wine label, probably don't do it. I don't know. I hate to say that.
Yeah, I know. I would definitely say that to anyone who wanted to plant a vineyard. I would say run away as fast as you can.
Yeah.
You were, we were talking, I don't remember if it was yesterday or the day before that you called me, but you were in the middle of disgorging your PetNat. And you were like, this is the stupidest, least profitable, dumbest thing, whatever it was. Can you give me? I just wanted you to like talk me through that. We tried to do this for one client one time. It was a complete disaster. We will never try to do it again. I see you guys do it on Instagram and you look so much more professional. You're not even having to, are you guys wearing goggles and stuff?
Yeah.
When you're doing it? Okay, you are. I can't remember if I saw Courtney in that.
So we've learned a lot. So when I first
Okay.
started making PetNat back in 2021, it's very different than what it looks like now, honestly. We used to, like, you can actually go back a few years on my Instagram and see we were wearing goggles, like Jen Gray and I outside, like covered in trash bags and hand disgorging. We're just like a mess at the end of the day. And then we finally realized how to. Courtney was talking to a local winemaker, Sean from Disco Wines, and Sean like reached out, like, you guys don't have to get that messy, right? And we were like, what are you talking about?
Wait, he saw it on Instagram and then sent you a message?
Yeah, and he was just like, you could do it underwater, and the pressure, it's like, it's much cleaner. And so anyway, he came over, taught us how to do it underwater, and he was right. I mean, he really is like so much cleaner. So from where we were years ago to where we are now, we're a lot more efficient about things. We've learned things year after year. It's still not smart financially at all. Yesterday, was it yesterday, the day before, we were disgorging on Monday.
This is Gruner Veltliner, right? Do you do a?
So the past couple of years I've done Gruner Veltliner, and then this 2024 harvest, we used Donica Chardonnay.
Oh, okay.
PetNat. So
When I first met you, you hated sparkling wine and Chardonnay.
I
And
still
now
hate-
you're making a sparkling. You
No.
refuse to drink champagne with me, or white Burgundy.
I still don't drink either
Okay.
at all. And everybody has a liquor in their life that they drank so much out of it, and then they got so sick that they will never drink again. Do you have that?
Yes.
What is
Is
it?
this Blanc de Blanc champagne for you?
Mine is champagne. Yes.
Oh my God. I'm
In my
sorry.
20s, I drank so much champagne, and I drank, by the way, very expensive champagnes and really, really cheap sparkling wines. In my 20s, I worked at sports bars, and we used to serve mimosas in pint glasses. And so, I mean, the amount of sparkling wine and champagne that I would drink. But one night, I was living in Manhattan Beach, and I think we were at Petros. Used to be like one of the, or maybe it was like Rock and Fish. I don't remember, but a very like fun party and expensive champagnes, and I got so sick. I've never recovered from champagne from my.
That's fair. That makes sense.
But I will have a little bit of it. And PetNat, I'll have a little bit of it, but I just don't drink much of it. And Chardonnay, I still don't like Chardonnay.
What made you want to make PetNat? One of the things that I'm always thinking about is like, can we meet market trends? Peter and I can't. We just make the wine that we make, and either people buy it or they don't. Like, I feel like I always see you like anticipating where the market is going, which I respect this so much, and being like, I'm going to make something a carbonic gamay. We're going to do a chilled red, and then we're going to do a PetNat, and maybe do you do any orange wine?
I did an orange wine.
You did an orange wine. That's what I mean. Like you're like with the trends.
I did it once.
You did it once. Okay. What was it made from?
Sauvignon Blanc. Grissini
Okay.
Sauvignon Blanc. Yeah.
So was that kind of the way, you kind of saw the PetNat market exploding, and were you like, I can do this. We should make a PetNat.
No. I did PetNat because I thought I was going to get enough fruit off of a vineyard to make a wine, and I didn't. It was just a small amount. I'm like, well, what the hell? I can't even fulfill wine club. What am I going to do with it? It's like, well, let's make 50. Let's just press it, ferment it, and let's just make 50 cases of PetNat. And that's kind of how it started. 50 cases is a lot less than what we do now, but just as dumb. Like, just as dumb. Fruit
Do you guys
cost.
hand label that as well?
I mean, it's all done by hand. I mean, I can't. When I say PetNat is stupid, it's stupid. Your PetNat can't demand what a bottle of champagne is ever going to demand, or even a bottle of sparkling wine. Some producers here in California make sparkling wine and can charge, $65, $70 a bottle. PetNat doesn't.
What do you charge for your PetNat?
I think it's 35.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe it's 38, or 40. If it's 40, it's because Brady made me raise it to 40.
Yeah, it should be 40.
I was like, who's going to pay $40 for a bottle of PetNat? But
There's only 50 cases. Like, it's kind of like, this is the way we were tasting. We made some Gruner Veltliner this year, and that's what we were over in the winery tasting this morning. And it was so good. And it was going to be wine slut. It was for a wine slut. It was $25. And then we started looking at the cost of it, and I was like, selling this for $25 is so stupid, So we should be selling this for $40, and we'll put it under Amy Peter made this or Hollis Bolster, like a totally different label, because we've got to be thinking about ways that we can make an extra $3 a bottle. I don't know if you've ever sat down and done the math. Like, if you just made an extra $20 a day in your tasting room, right? Like, how much profitability that pays your rent for one full month at the end of the year, basically. So good on Brady. Well, you were telling us from the very beginning when we opened to raise our prices, and now I'm telling you to raise yours.
Radio like that.
Yeah, everything's going to get more expensive. I think $40 for a bottle of wine that has been handmade the way you guys make it, hand disgorged, hand labeled. I mean, what do people want? Do you know what people spend $40 on? Nothing, right?
Yeah,
They
no.
can spend $40 on a.
PetNat's crazy. Wine is crazy too.
Yeah.
I don't think that people understand what we're doing, what you're doing in your vineyard. So I literally just did a PetNat post, and I'm like, right outside of the growing season, outside of how many times you're in the vineyard or we're in the vineyard growing the grapes, hand-picked, hand-sorted, it's pressed here, we're fermenting it here, then we stop what we're doing for PetNat to bottle in the middle of harvest.
It's crazy.
Hand bottling, bottle by bottle, hand capping, bottle by bottle. This is not machine done. This is by our hands. Put it away, let it finish fermenting. Then we hand riddle every bottle. And then we hand disgorge, hand cap again, clean every bottle by bottle, and then we hand label everything. I mean, the amount of times that PetNat sees a human set of hands is absolutely asinine. And yesterday, on Monday, we had 4 of us here doing it, right? So what's the labor cost on that one day? But I also don't want to just make, right? Like I always say, I don't just want to make Cabernet and Pinot Noir. Like, we don't make Cabernet, but our generation is so much more savvy. Our generation is so much more inquisitive. I think that we owe it to consumers to make more interesting things. We owe it to consumers to make Gruner Veltliner, to make PetNat, to make orange wine, because there's so many delicious wines in the world. And that's why I try to do something new. We just released our Picpoul Blanc. I want to stay excited about wine. And if I'm going to try something new year after year, or continue to make things and hone my craft year after year, then I'm still excited about it. And I think that's why we try new things here and there to continue to learn and to continue to keep things exciting. Because wine, right? Wine shouldn't be stuffy and boring and the same thing over and over again. And that is why we do some different things here, like PetNat.
I love it. I think that's a perfect place to end.
Okay.
Thanks, Jess.
Yeah.
I know we should get a dinner in the books.